Good afternoon. Today is Tuesday, January 18th. The time is 3:25, and we are reconvening our briefing meeting for today. On the agenda is semifinalist candidate interview with Randy Mahlerwein from 3:30 to 5:05 p.m. At this time, I'll ask Board Chair Debbie Jordan to introduce board members.
Good afternoon. Mr. Mahlerwein, and if I say your name wrong, please correct us so we know how to say your name. So I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. So I apologize right off the bat. But welcome. My name is Debbie Jordan. I'm the chair who also represents District 4 in Lee County. Also, we are here with my colleagues, Ms. Mary Fisher, who represents District 1, Ms. Giovanelli, District 2, Ms. Patrica, District 3, Ms. Gittens had to step out. I have Ms. Vaughn, who is District 6, and Ms. Morgan, who is District 7. So welcome.
Thank you.
Ms. Fisher, shall I go over the timeline now?
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and go over with the timeline. First of all, we are really pleased to have you as one of our top candidates for the superintendency of the School District of Lee County. I also want to go over the timeline with you. You will have approximately an hour and a half for Q&A. And within that, we will have questions that the members will be asking. Each of those questions will be approximately 3 to 5 minutes. We will be timing that so that way we can get all the questions through to you. We also will start off with an opening statement from you, which you would have 3 to 5 minutes to do that as well. Following that, after all the questions have been completed, we will then give you another opportunity for your closing remarks. And then we'll turn that back over to Ms. Fisher for that to take place as the vice chair. And is there any questions that you may have at this moment?
No, I appreciate that. I don't have any questions at this moment. I think you guys did get my name correctly when it was said a few times, so I think we're good.
Okay, great, thank you. And as the members, when they do ask the questions, if they can, they'll reintroduce themselves, so that way you'll have the opportunity to see who's speaking with you. And thank you for being here.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Fisher, we'll go ahead and begin with you then.
Well,
Opening statement.
Oh, I'm sorry. I already skipped your opening statement. Please, your opening statements.
Anyway, I'm humbled to be here. My name's Randy Mahlerwein. I've been a career educator. I'm in my 25th year. I'm really excited for the opportunity to speak with you guys today and answer questions and for you guys to get to know me a little bit. I have my career has expanded over the last 2.5 decades. I've done a number of different things that qualify me to lead a school district. Recently, in the last few years, I've been I'm getting some static. I don't know if you guys are, but I'm okay.
You sound really good. We hear you.
Great. So the last few years, I've been an assistant superintendent in the largest school district in Arizona, Mesa Public Schools. We fluctuate between 59 and 62,000 students. My first 2 years there, I was the superintendent over 24 K through 12 schools, including three senior high schools and 2 high schools. I think a little bit of my skill set and a little bit of my strength leads to secondary. I have quite a bit there. I've been an assistant superintendent for their school district and secondary. So I was promoted to over secondary schools this year. So this year, my responsibility is for 30,000 students. I generally work with the team. I'm very team oriented. If I was going to look at my leadership style, it's about leading. It's about selection and then developing highly effective and highly functioning teams. So over the last year and coming out of the pandemic, I've been working with eight high schools, 6 comprehensive high schools, 2 alternative high schools, and kind of a online high school. So technically 9, but really 8. And then 11 junior high schools, 10 comprehensive junior high schools, and 1 AP, IB focused high school. I do oversee 1 IB high school, and I work in all facets of leadership throughout the large organization. Another thing that I've done very recently that has really helped the district grow is I've established a very intimate relationship with Arizona State University. I'm our liaison that works very side by side, Dean Basile and Executive Director Mencken. We are implementing some innovative public schools through the work that I was able to do. I was able to build we qualified to go ahead and scale this work over what is 6 very large comprehensive high schools. The 6 comprehensive high schools that we're working are between 3,500, and my smallest high school that I get to lead is 2,300. But I have 4 of them that are in the top 10 in regards to size in the state. So I'm very, very much used to working with large schools in a large school district and understanding the communication skills that are needed to scale that work and motivate and innovate.
I'm Mary Fisher, District 1 and the Vice Chair. And so I'll begin the questioning this afternoon. During the first year, how might you go about determining the strengths and weaknesses of our school district? And what specific steps would you take?
Again, I'm a very team-oriented leader, so I would, the first thing I would do is meet individually with all the members of the executive team. I would want to hear from them their levels of expertise, what they oversee, and I want them to tell me what do they feel the strengths of the district are, what do they feel the needs or the areas of improvement would be, and then I would look for trend data. I would probably also want to carry through that a couple layers, meet with the executive directors, meet with the directors, hear what the strengths are, hear what they feel the needs are. I would like to hear with the teacher association groups that are involved, whether they're in the administrator association groups, the classified association groups, and also any influential parent groups or parent groups that are available. And I really want to do a listening session. My number one form of communication is listening. I think that's the first thing that I would want to do, and I would want to gather basically trend data and hear what they feel are the strengths and what they feel are the areas of need. The other thing is I've been looking at the Florida page, the Department of Ed page. It's super comprehensive. There's a lot of data I've already pulled out of there. I went back to 2019 because I wanted to see where Lee County was prior to the pandemic, because I know we've all struggled through the pandemic between jumping from virtual and hybrid and back, and kids with a lot of learning opportunity loss. So I would really look to listening to stakeholders, starting with the executive team that I'd be lucky enough to work all the way down through those layers of leadership, but parents, community members, business members, local leaders. I'd want to hear from everybody, and then I want to look for trend data and then have conversations about that. That's where I would begin in the first few months of arriving.
That's awesome and pretty comprehensive. So with that, unless you have anything else to add, I will pass you on now to Mrs. Giovanelli, our District 2 representative.
Hi, thank you for your patience.
No worries. That's kind of what we do, right?
Great. Yes. How would you build a good working relationship between the board and the superintendent? Please cite examples.
So working with the school board, the first thing is, again, one-on-one, be able to have individual meetings and listen, really listen, and to each member, hear what their areas of, again, what they believe are the strengths, what they believe are weakness, the areas they believe to go, what do they think has done well, where do they see the future, what do they know about local business, what do they know about the community that they represent. But more than anything, I think it's about building a relationship based on open communication, sense of urgency through communication. One of the things I do now is I keep everybody informed in the moment, so there's never a surprise, there's never a blind side. The board members, my superintendent allows me to communicate with her and with the school board, and I make sure school board members are never blindsided. They know issues before they would hit the community and definitely before they would hit the news. But I would also want to share with each board member my leadership style, who I am, what are the things that I believe strongly in, the levels of integrity that I bring to everything I do. Because the first thing is, my goal coming out with every single human being that I get to work with is I'm going to earn their trust. First people that I'm going to earn the trust is going to be with the school board that I'm lucky enough to work with, and then the executive team that I'm lucky enough to lead at times and other times be a teammate with. But it's my job to earn that trust. It's my job to build that trust. And that's where I'd want to start with each board member individually. I've been working with school boards and school board members for a number of years, and I understand kind of the ins and outs, and everybody has a different group that they listen to, and I'd want to learn that. I want to get a feel of that, and I want to honor that. But I also want to communicate quickly at a high level, crystal clear. But I think more than anything, I want the relationship that I have the school that I would build with the school board built on trust that I establish with early, and that I maintain often, and that I never let people down with.
Thank you.
Ms. Patrica?
Good afternoon. I'm Chris Patrica. How are you? Thank you for your patience. I'm sorry to put you in these circumstances. You're handling it really, really well. My question is, please describe a time or a setting where inequity and implied bias came to light, and from your position, how you addressed it, and what were the individual and/or organizational outcomes?
I could come up with a few of them. I'd like to narrow it down to a situation that I just had with one of the high schools I lead. I could probably come up with a few, but we have a high school that I work with that has been kind of the landmark high school in the district for a number of years. It was voted top 25 high school nationally a number of years ago. It sort of had stagnated, and we needed to replace the leader. We replaced the leader. I believe very strongly in integrity and leadership. We replaced the leader with an elementary principal, which is very unorthodox. But when you identify the right human being that can lead and connect with people, then that's the decision to be made. So we replaced the high school leader, who was also a good gentleman. It was time to make a move. And we had recently, and there had been rumors of some bias and some racial tension within the school. Well, the school over the last 10 years, the demographics have changed. It went from a school that was very much a white upper middle class school to what is now kind of a middle class, upper middle class, but very diverse school. And we had a situation where there was some racial content written on a wall. I worked hand in hand with the principal on how to bring in the right stakeholders, the right people to have a conversation, because we needed to get out in front of it very quickly. We needed to identify that we have a different leader. So the things that had happened at this school in the past, and the rumors were, and some of the feeling was that these things were swept under the rug in the past. We got out in front of it early. We communicated with the right stakeholders. We made sure that they knew in our hearts, me working hand by hand with the leader, myself and the leader, our hearts are about equity. Our hearts are about opportunities, who we were. We were bringing student stakeholders together, staff stakeholders together, community stakeholders together to talk about the plan, to talk about the educational approach, the communication approach, that we were going to deal with this, and this types of behavior. Maybe it was something 5 years ago, 8 years ago that would be overlooked, but that's not the new administration. That's not who we are. And I think and this was very recent, and I think over the last 6 weeks, we have built a little bit of trust. We are bringing groups of students together, groups of diverse stakeholders together, and we're talking about our plan, and we're developing a plan together to create psychological safety, to create a place where every student has agency and voice in their learning and has a place at the school. So that's one very specific situation I've dealt with. I dealt with it in the last 2 months. But, these are situations that popped up throughout my career. I spent 16 years in a very urban school district, and there it was a little different. There was what I used to refer to as institutionalized racism, where sometimes we would water down IEPs because we had a community of, we had a Latino community that didn't speak English, so we would water down IEPs, and we weren't giving the kids what they needed. And I worked very diligently to make sure that we would write the same high levels of integrity within the IEPs and the instruction for all of our students. And then I was able to work 6 years in a very affluent school district in South Gilbert, which is one of our most affluent areas. And I dealt with a whole different set of equity and biased issues. And so I have quite a bit of experience of that, but I just wanted to give you an example of one specific one. But I do have, my whole career has been about working to ensure equity in all things that we do in schools.
Okay, thank you. My question is, please share a time when a plan or a major objective did not turn out successfully, and describe what you did to change that effort, and how was that situation improved? Please, and thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So again, I believe in teams of distributed expertise to solve adaptive challenges. So I always work in a team. I never work in isolation. But one thing is a principle that I live on is authenticity and character. I don't know if I've ever had a situation that I stayed the course with that didn't end up successful, because when I see something that's not working, if I see something that is deviating from the plan, we come together and we pivot and we try something different. We learn from the mistakes that we made early and we pivot. And I think sometimes one thing that I would say that I'm proud of is that my ego doesn't get involved when I make decision makings and when I have to lead a situation. So as the leader, if we as a team make a call, we move in a direction, I take ownership of the missteps. I reconvene the team. We talk about what has happened, what wasn't going right, and we make immediate steps to change it. So I hate to say that that hasn't happened, because I don't want to sound arrogant, but we get involved quickly and we pivot and we make a decision, and it usually will end up. I can't think of a time that I saw a plan carried out to fruition that didn't have elements of success, because when the goals or the direction the team and I and the team that I led were going in, when we saw that we weren't getting the results that we needed, then we have to humbly come back to the table and say, what did we do wrong? And fix that and make solutions on the fly. We deal with children's lives, and every year is a critical year. And so we have to move quickly when we see that something's not working right. And I just have a sense of urgency to always be seeing those things through the right way. So I would say that I haven't experienced that, because I'll jump up and take ownership and ask for help, and we will correct the situation, because I've always been surrounded, by a team of 5, 6, 7, 8 smart individuals, and somebody can come up with something that we haven't thought of. But I can establish that because I build teams of psychological safety where we all understand the rules of engagement. We all have a voice in the room. And so there's never an idea that gets left on the table because of how I develop teams.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that answer. And I'm turning it over to Ms. Gittens now.
Good afternoon and welcome. I want to make sure I'm saying your name correct. Is it Mahlerwein?
Mahlerwein, yes.
Okay, thank
Sounds
you. Good afternoon. My question is, America is facing a vast teacher shortage. What strategies would you put in place to combat that crisis?
Yes, ma'am. Wow, that is something that I'm passionate about, and I currently lead this effort in Mesa Public Schools. We, like every major comprehensive school district, are having a teacher shortage. I personally believe that it's because we have created an environment that is not suitable for what we're asking teachers to do. We're humans, and we've been spawned from mammals, and we are built to work together in groups and teams. And one thing we've done is we have asked teachers, and I can speak to an elementary teacher, we've asked the teacher to go into a classroom with 25 kids, and we've asked them to try and figure out the genetic code for each of those 25 kids. And then for 6 to 7 hours a day, over 180 days, try to get each of these children to connect with us and learn at a deep level that then is going to be assessed on a standardized test that may or may not test the things that the kids learn, because we have such a vast amount of things that we learn. And when you look at a high school teacher, now you have a high school teacher, let's just say you have a Algebra 1 teacher, because I know that Lee County's in 2019, your algebra scores were down 15 points. So let's talk algebra. You have an algebra teacher that has 5 periods a day, 30 kids. So now she has 150 children, or he has 150 students to teach algebra 1 hour a day for 180 days. That's a big ask. So how would I address the shortage? I would create better working environments for our teachers. I think teachers are built and should be working in teams, collaboratively, coming together to share strengths. I like to use the term teams of distributed expertise. I have a whole plan that I can lay out for you over the course of a couple hours on how this works. I'm doing this in the schools that I work in right now. We're creating teams of distributed expertise where teachers co-create, co-plan, and co-design lessons together, where they are co-mingling content, and then that content, we're asking students within these environments to have agency, to connect relevancy, cultural and societal relevancy to content with complex outcomes, and collaborate. That is what we want our kids to do, because we want our kids to be not only career, but college, but community ready. So you bring teachers together, co-create, co-design lessons. Now you have teachers working in the same environment that you're asking students to work in. It's really hard to, from my level, here's where I think we've made a big mistake and why there's a teacher shortage. I think we have executive teams that create compliance-based environments for site-level leaders. I think our site-level leaders then take the lead, create compliance-based environments for teachers, and then we ask our teachers, create this engaging, creative environment where kids can live into their passions and the natural human ability to be curious and discover, and it really doesn't work. So I think we have to start with creating different environments, and those environments have to be built on teams of distributed expertise where we work together, because we know as human beings, we feel better when we work together, we produce better results when we work together, and we can share distributed expertise. Now you might have 100 kids being shared by 3 teachers. You could have an IA in the room, you push in a special ed. Now you have 5 adults. You have 5 adults sharing 100 kids. There's somebody in that room that every kid can connect with. And we know that human connection is what keeps us coming back to work and why we would want to be at work. And so when teachers don't show up for work, teachers are leaving the profession. I'm asking myself, what's wrong with the environment we put them in? Because if we create the right environment and there's passion in what they do, and we let them take back their professions with a little bit of autonomy, and again, that passion, I think people will stay in the profession.
Can you just give us just one quick little example of that executive teams creating compliance-based environments, just so that we make sure I understand that?
Absolutely. So I get to work with a phenomenal principal at Westwood High School. You can Google it. And we got what's called a 9th grade academy there. We're all 9th grade teachers, because we know grade 9 is the most pivotal year to get kids to graduation. We know we lose a lot of kids in grade 9. We know how important it is. So when they have teams that work together collaboratively, and I'll speak of one team that I experienced, and I'll talk about my experience with them at the end of last year. So at the end of a pandemic where we were very stressed, I think we can all agree we went through a lot last school year trying just to take care of one another. We had a biology teacher, an English teacher, and a math teacher, and they were collaborating, and they talked to their students, and their students decided they wanted to do a unit on Romeo and Juliet. And when I looked at the teachers, I thought, kids want to do Romeo and Juliet? You know, it seems like Shakespeare. But to be honest, I think Leonardo DiCaprio might have kind of inspired a whole group of kids. So yeah, they wanted to do Romeo and Juliet. So they sat with the kids, and they came up with a comprehensive lesson that went through what's it called when we had forensics unit. They did math, and they integrated math in there. Obviously, there was reading, there was writing in there. So the 3 content areas co-created this unit together. And then the most incredible thing was they gave the students, before they started, said, these are the standards that we want you to master at the end of this 6th unit. And then at the end of this unit, we are going to let you tell us how you mastered those students. Students were doing TikTok, students were drawing murals, and there was 100% engagement, and you could just see the learning. When I went, and so because I'm involved, they asked me, hey, will you come over and see the school? And absolutely, it was something I wanted to see. It had the hair stand up on the back of your neck, these kids just being so engaged in Romeo and Juliet, and seeing the forensic unit with biology and the mathematics that come in on, you know, the thrust of the sword, and they tied so many things in because there was a sword fight that happened in Romeo and Juliet. I just thought it was amazing, and what it was an example of teachers co-creating comprehensive, complex learning opportunities for students that have cultural and societal relevance.
Okay, thank you so much for explaining that. Next question is by Ms. Vaughn.
Greetings, Dr. Mahlerwein. I'm Betsy Vaughn, District 6. If there were a conflict between different community groups in the district over a particular issue, how might you resolve it? And if you can, cite some examples that you have used to resolve conflicts.
So a conflict between 2 separate communities.
Between different community groups over a particular issue.
Yes, ma'am. I can talk to that. You know, I'm very fortunate that the superintendent I work with is very collaborative, and we do work in a team. So, I mean, I can talk very specifically about an issue I know that you guys went through last year, was the mask issue. And we had communities on either side. And so what we did was a number of surveys that went out. We wanted to get a feel from the different sets, different communities. We wanted to we did Facebook Lives very frequently to communicate where we were and where we were getting our information from. We communicated very clearly on our process and our mitigation strategies, and then we used basically the survey. We used all pieces of what we went through to make a decision, and what our decision was we did a number of mitigation strategies, but at the end of the day, when our mask decision, we decided to make masks optional. And you can imagine that we had one group of people, well, we had multiple groups that were unhappy. It wasn't any way to make anybody happy, but we were very clear on the reasons why, and we were very clear on where why we came to that decision. We communicated it early, we communicated often, and we stayed with it. And of course, there were some people who weren't happy, some people were happy, but at the end of the day, everybody knew where we stood and why we stood there. And I'm not sure if there was a way to win that, but I think we listened, we heard, we communicated very well, and then we made a decision. And once we made a decision, we kind of stayed with the decision. And one thing I was very proud of is we're a very large district. We're the largest district in Arizona, somewhere between 58 and 62,000 students, depending on the year. And we had more days in person. There was only one school district that had more days in person than we did last year. And we also opened a virtual school, which all of that came out from this mass conversation. This mass conversation opened up a whole bunch of different ideas and pathways for us to go down for solutions, because we knew we had a group of parents that would not want to be Mesa Public School parents if we went to a mask optional. So we created a virtual school. We created a great pathway to instruction there, a great pathway for curriculum, a great communication piece there. And so we also created a hybrid models. We did a lot of technology where, and we did a lot of different scheduling. I asked our high schools to come out and redo master schedules 2 weeks before our winter break, because we knew where we were going to move in this direction. You can imagine what that looks like with a group of administrators and mass. But as a team is built on trust, we all came together and we did it. But the mass situation was very polarizing for a lot of people, and I think the solution was we let all voices heard. We're good.
Okay. Like, no.
Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Are we, tech team, are we good to go? If you're not deaf after that, I think I am.
heard it.
Good to go.
Okay, can we move along? Thank you for your answer, and going to pass this. Can you hear? Not if you can hear me.
I can hear. It's a little staticky. I got you. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to pass along the next question with Mrs. Kathleen Morgan.
Hello, Dr. Mahlerwein. Welcome. What has been your success as a school leader in partnering with higher education and the business community? Please mention the partnerships that have developed as a result of your leadership.
I couldn't hear the last. I heard partnership with higher education and business. What was mine? I didn't hear the rest of that. Could you repeat that, please?
I'll read it, the whole thing again. What has been your success as a school leader in partnering with higher education and the business community? Please mention the partnerships that have developed as a result of your leadership.
Okay. Yeah, so when I came to Mesa Public Schools, we had a retreat, and we had a retreat with ASU, and one of their big initiatives is what's called the Next Education Workforce. And when I listened to it, it really resonated in my heart. So, it was easy for me to see this could be the future of education. So I embraced it. And I just think through my work ethic, the way I communicate, the way I build trust and relationships, the schools that I work with were the first ones to start to pilot some of this pathway from ASU. Through the work I was able to do with the leaders that I got to lead, I guess I was noticed by our superintendent and noticed by Dean Basile, and I became our liaison for Mesa Public Schools. So now I meet weekly with the executive director of the Next Education Workforce from ASU. And I get to talk to Dean Basile. She's kind. She answers my phone calls, and we'll have breakfast every now and then. But there's a partnership between Mesa Public Schools and Arizona State University, which has been voted one of the most innovative universities for the last 5 or 6 years. And I spearhead that. I spearhead that relationship. I think you can look at my letters of recommendation and you can see that they reflect that. In the middle of that, I was able to connect with Dr. Lindy Elkins-Tanton, who is an interplanetary scientist who's putting a rocket on an asteroid to mine a metal that doesn't exist on Earth. That still blows me away that we partner. Well, the partnership with her is that she teaches her class at the university through what's called Next Natural Question, which is an inquiry pathway. It's a pathway where there's a lot of student agency in the learning, and the learning is at very deep levels. I really believe passionately in deeper and personalized learning for kids, because that's where the connection needs to happen for them to move into the workforce of the future. We know the workforce of the future is changing, and the jobs that are going to be there in 5 years don't even exist yet. Well, how are we preparing our students for that? So I have this relationship built with ASU, and through that relationship, I've been able to attend quite a few events and have conversations. Right before winter break, I was able to meet the CEO of Honeywell, and through the conversation that we had with him, we are now going to take and have a comprehensive internship. We're going to have a shadow program. We're going to, one of the things that I believe is implementing community educators in the school. So we're going to bring community educators into the school to work on teams, to work with teams of teachers, to back to that teaming of distributed expertise, right? Who better than a aerospace engineer to come in there and then help talk about trigonometry and propulsion. So I head up that. I am the point person for ASU, for Mesa Public Schools and ASU. And then through the work I did with there, I was able to connect with former state representative Heather Carter, who is the CEO of the Greater Phoenix Leadership Group, and now I am leading the effort to partnering with that group, because what we're seeing is, and it really connects with your strategic initiatives for the future on connection with business, connection with industry, building these partnerships. So I'm already doing some of that work. So now I'm going to be working with the Greater Phoenix Leadership Group. So to do what we're going to do with Honeywell, we're going to do with Boeing, we're going to do with SMM Metal, we're going to do it. I don't do anything independently. It's always a team. So I always want to make sure my team is well represented when I talk about things. So a couple principals and we went out, we met with the head operations guy for Empire Cat, and Empire Cat is a company that you see those big excavators that are enormous, that you have to break them apart, put them on trailers, and well, you don't really buy new ones. You fix the ones that are broken. It's more economical, and Empire Cat does that. But what they're lacking is entry-level workforce. So I went out there, walked their plant, saw what they're doing, talk to them about what do they need, talk to them about what we could provide to them. Then we get in with our welding kids, we get in with our automotive kids that are mechanically inclined, and we let them know about these future opportunities. I mean, it's an amazing, there's amazing things out there for kids that aren't necessarily geared for college, or at least college right away, as we know that prefrontal lobe is still developing in a lot of our young men. But we can get them into the workforce. They can make money. They can learn in there, and so we're building those partnerships. That's really the focus of what I do every day. That and lead the principals I'm lucky enough to work with. So that's an example of what I'm doing. There's a lot more that really goes into that. I mean, that again could be. I mean, I could walk you guys through the outline of how we've built that, but it comes down to understanding. For me, understanding what industry is looking for, and they're calling them professional skills, but it's the same stuff. They want kids that can collaborate. They want kids that can contribute. They want human beings that can come into the workforce and problem solve and critically think and communicate. And what they're saying is we are not seeing students coming in and that can do these things. So what do we need to do in our schools is we need to figure out ways to produce these human beings that can walk into this part of the workforce and connect with business. I don't know a business that is not dealing with adaptive challenges. Adaptive challenges cannot be solved by the one-person hero leader. You need a team of collective expertise to come together to solve these adaptive challenges and then ultimately create adaptive change. And that's what industry is asking for. So that has to start mirroring what we're doing in the classroom in some regard. And obviously you can't go 0 to 120 and do that, but you start out in places where where you have your, your believers, for lack of a better term. You have your people that just have an innovative mindset, a natural creative mindset, and you start there. And what happens is when you start there in the classroom, they experience joy that they haven't experienced before, and then they tell their colleagues, and now you got more people, and it grows. And I was able to go. I was able to start with basically one school and one grade level at the beginning of a pandemic, and the team that I was lucky enough to lead, we ended the pandemic with 18 of our schools working in this environment at the end of a pandemic, motivated, connecting with business, connecting with industry. And it all happened through the relationship that I build with ASU and the relationships that I build with former Representative Carter and now the Greater Phoenix Leadership Council and CEOs and anybody that's coming to the table, we're going to talk about, because as a large public school district, Mesa Public Schools, we not only are crafting human beings for the future, we are responsible for making the city of Mesa a better place to live, and that would be Lee County, and hopefully next year.
I love your passion and excitement answering this question. Thank you very much.
No kidding.
I'm going to turn you over to Ms. Fisher.
Thank you. Dr. Mahlerwein. And I also enjoyed that last answer. That was really spot on. As superintendent, what would be your role in the budgetary process? Please specify.
My role in the budgetary process would be to listen very intently to the experts that have been hired to work in the budgetary process in Lee County. One thing that I think is important is for me to understand, and the team that I work with to help me understand where are the areas that we need to grow, and then looking at our budgetary process and trying to figure out what dollars would be available to boost that. I saw you guys opened, I believe it was last year, a CTE center. I think that might be something that we could look at to expand. I believe that the career and technical education is invaluable. I think that we have to create pathways for every student. But the other thing that's really critical for me is teacher salaries. We need to pay our educators better than a living wage. We need to pay them for their value. And I know about 90% to 88 to 90% of the budget is spent on salaries. I think it's critical that Lee County is, if not at the top, we are very competitive. We stay competitive. We create the environment. We're not going to have teacher shortage issues. So, for me, look, I took all the classes. I've been on executive teams. I've heard the budget conversations, but I know that that's not a strength of mine. So I would listen to the experts, and if I wasn't sure what I was hearing was right, then I would look to consultation with other experts. I mean, there are people out there to help public school. There are people out there that want to communicate and add value, and it's my job to identify those people. If I have any strength, I identify good people very quickly, and I've always been able to identify good people quickly, and I've always been able to listen to them and be able to understand the direction we need to go. Or when I say we, the organization that when I've been an executive, the executive team. One district called it cabinet. We call it superintendency here. It's the upper level leadership. When I say executive team, that's what I'm referring to. But I glanced at your guys' org chart. I didn't have it memorized, but I think it was really well done. I remember going, wow, this looks really good. But I know you have experts in this area, and I would spend a lot of time with them early to get a real understanding. And obviously, if I had questions, I would ask them, and that's where I would go with that.
Well, thank you for that explanation. That's excellent. At this time, I'll pass you back now to Mrs. Giovanelli.
Thank you. What experience have you had in working with a community of diverse elements such as socioeconomic and educational levels, culture, race, and ethnicity? Please explain the detail.
So, I grew up in what you would call working class poverty. When the economy was good, things were better. When the economy was bad, there was struggle. When I left the university, I searched for an urban school district. I think because I wanted to create a better experience for children in school than I had. So I spent 16 years in the most urban communities in Phoenix. I was in South Phoenix as a teacher, Central Phoenix as a teacher, and then I was an administrator in West Phoenix. The area where I was the administrator, that's...
Let's try it again.
I think, can I continue maybe?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Okay, so I worked in that community as administrator for 8 years. The only reason I relocated to South Gilbert was because I started a family and I couldn't drive 50 minutes every day, and it broke my heart to leave. But so let me just describe the community that I worked in. We were 99% free and reduced lunch because 1% just didn't fill out the forms. It was 94% Latino, 5% Black, and then we had other. I took the school that I led to. We were the highest growth school in the state. I had the highest growth number in the state, and we ended up on a B label. But what I learned most is about how to communicate and that community that I worked with. So, it was, for me there, it was about taking care of kids, making them feel a sense of belonging, making them feel that school was a place for them. So, I have a ton of experience working with kids in poverty. I have a ton of experience working with the Latino population. And now in Mesa, the demographics of our school district are very similar to Lee. I think Lee County has about 10% more Black than we do, but our Latino population is a little larger, and our white population is just a little smaller. But, I spend a lot of time out in that community. I would do home visits in that community. We would have community events in that community. And I didn't really struggle too much communicating. I understand what people in poverty go through. I understand where their hearts are at. They're just like, people. Everybody loves their kids. Everybody wants what's best for their kids. So you just communicate to them like you would want you to be communicated with. So I understand what it's like to work with those communities. I think, again, it gets back to me listening and understanding the hidden dynamics of each community, because every neighborhood is a little different. The one thing that I did tackle that I saw and I mentioned earlier was I noticed that there was a lot of watered down IEPs, and I wanted to make sure that our kids that had learning disabilities, which we know they just learn differently, were getting what they needed in the classroom, in the community that maybe was uneducated or didn't understand the IEP or couldn't be communicated the right way. Well, that's my job. My job was to make sure that they were done the right way. Now, since I've moved to Mesa Public Schools, we have seen all our behaviors of dysfunction increase. I mean, we had a lot of kids that were at home with no supervision, cramped up spaces, and we brought them back to school. We had, like everywhere else, we've had the TikTok issues. We've had bomb threats. We've had shooter threats. And as the superintendent, it's my job to work hand in hand with the principals and the leadership and the directors. And, I get involved. Generally, I'm the one that goes out and communicates with the community because I just have always had a way to communicate empathy and care, but also give them the information that they're looking for. So, I have a ton of understanding of poverty, and I have a ton of understanding working with diverse communities. I'm a first generation college kid, and to go through and get a couple master's degrees and a doctorate, I'm proud of that, but I also understand the struggle that our communities go through, and I understand how to communicate, build relationships, how to teach leaders how to communicate, build relationships to lessen that struggle. We have to support our communities in struggle, through that struggle, and we have to give them a vision of another tomorrow. We have to reset the stars. One thing that I've done in Mesa Public Schools is I've built an international scholar program, which is basically recruiting foreign exchange. We don't exchange kids, so it's really not foreign exchange. So I call it international scholar. When I got to Mesa, there were, I think, 27 students, and 7 of them were F1 students, which paid tuition. In a pandemic, I've scaled that to 124. Of those 124, 117 of them are paying tuition. So we are able to support students. We're just not educating the world for free. But what we are doing we are bringing a diverse group of kids into our schools, kids of color, kids from a diverse background, to connect with kids that don't get to see the world. So because you will grow up in poverty, you might not get an opportunity to see the world. So I'm going to bring the world to you. And so now you can communicate with somebody from Brazil, somebody from Vietnam, somebody from, let me think of another couple of countries we have that I know of so I don't misspeak, Colombia, Kazakhstan. We have 18 different countries represented, and now you have kids that would never have that experience, getting that experience. Now they can pick up their cell phone, get an internet connection, connect with a child that looks like them, that speaks a foreign language anytime, and that can change your stars, and that can change your possibilities. So there's a lot of things I think about when I'm talking about how do we ensure equity. We ensure equity through voice. We ensure equity through content being societal but culturally relevant. We ensure equity by creating different experiences. How do we change kids in poverty's attitude? We change their experience at school. We change, we make sure that there's somebody they can connect to and build a sense of belonging with. So that's what I've learned in my 16 years, and now my last 3 years back working with kids of poverty. So, yeah, I'd like to talk about the other side. I don't know if there's going to be a question, but I have worked on increasing AP scores. I have worked on bringing AP capstone to a school district that didn't have it. Didn't have an IB program, didn't have AP capstone, because I believe there has to be a pathway for every student in the schools that I'm lucky enough to lead.
Thank you.
I'm just going to interrupt for 1 minute and say that it is now 4:36, and we are halfway through the questions, but we have a half hour left. So
I'll read fast.
we'll proceed, and and if we need a couple minutes at the end, we have a little time built in for that.
I'll be quicker.
And I'm sorry, Ms. Fisher, based on the issues that we had in advance,
Yes.
we would have added it would end at 5:20 if we added that time back in.
Okay, all right, so we'll add a few minutes on so that we can make up for the time lost with our technical difficulties. Thank you.
Chris Patrica here. Your next question is, what would you do to positively impact student achievement? Please discuss in detail successful efforts to narrow or close identified achievement gaps in your current district.
Okay, so I've only been in my current district. I'm in my 3rd year. So, we went into COVID in March, and now this year, what we've been dealing a lot with is learning opportunity loss. But what I can talk to you about is how to close the achievement gap. And can I speak to that just in general then, because of where I'm at with my current district?
Yes, please.
So in my current district, what we are doing is we're doing comprehensive professional development on our multi-tiered systems of support. So we are looking at, we have a fast bridge diagnostic assessment that we've given to all students. What I like about that is there's also a social emotional component to that. And now, we're halfway through the school year, so we're looking at the data. We've given the second assessment. We're looking at data, and then we're looking at what can we do with the very specific data that we're gathering to whether we're looking at increasing phonemic awareness, fluency, main idea, vocabulary. What are we looking for, or what are we looking to improve? And then we are breaking those kids out into very systematic interventions. What I have done in the past as an administrator and a leader at a district level is obviously we'll use a screener, and then we would look at that data, and we would pull small groups within the classroom that would deal with kids very, very specifically. So we do in the class tier 2 instruction, and then the kids that weren't exited right away or didn't move on, it has to be very fluid. We would create a tier 3 system of intervention to work with those kids that then couldn't be exited out of a tier 3 system intervention. We would look at and see if they would classify for quite possibly special ed or with a learning disability. As a secondary person, we really look closely. I really look closely. We monitor failure rates, which we call success rates. We look at our success rates in those areas where we have deficiency in those success rates, and we go back in and we're doing small group instruction. We're pulling kids out for intervention there, but we're also looking on how are we creating what are we doing for credit recovery. My last, I guess, 4 of the last 6 years when I've been on an executive team, I've been over secondary. So what I work on a lot is credit recovery. How do we get kids to graduate? How do we get kids to get credit, to caught up credit, or to get caught up with their credit? But what I've always used in my other district, and how we had the greatest, we had the highest growth in the state, was we used a diagnostic screener, and that's where we started. And we pulled small group in the classroom tier 2 instruction. Why I believe that worked is because the teachers in the classrooms knew their kids. When you pull a group of kids to a teacher they don't know, they don't have that personal connection. So we did tier 2 instruction in the classroom, and then we did a round 2 of that tier 2 instruction in the classroom. And then we also had tier 3 pull-out intervention, where we would pull kids out of, it would just depend on what their schedule looked like. It might be an elective, it might be a social studies class, but it was all, the silver bullet to get kids to close the achievement gap is small group instruction, which leads right into the science behind delivered practice. You want 5 to 8 kids, very intensive for 8 to 10 minutes with an expert, working very intently with those children, and that's how we close the gap. That's how I've always closed the achievement gap.
Thank you very much.
Okay, back with me again. So the next question is, what do you consider to be your major strengths as an administrator? What have you targeted for personal and professional improvements?
I couldn't hear the word you said before, professional improvements.
That's okay.
What did I?
It says, what do you consider to be your major strengths as administrator? What have you targeted for personal or professional improvement?
What is my strength? My greatest strength as a leader is humility. I embrace humility. I live by a motto, earn my title every day. every day I show up, I walk out of the parking garage, I see that Mesa Public School emblem, and I just tell myself, earn that title today. And so my greatest leadership strength is humility, self-reflection, and just earning that title every day. What have I done? Well, in 2010, I finished my doctorate program, and I had enough textbooks to last me a while. So I decided that I was going to start reading and chasing down the type of content that interests me, and that's leadership. And that's leadership and I wouldn't say self-help, I would say self-development. And so I don't read the regular education leadership books. I read leadership books. I'll humbly tell you that I don't know anybody that does more of that than I do. I'm always the most well-read person in the room. That's just weird saying that out loud, but I guess I need you guys to know. I also spend a lot of time, if I hear something or read something, I'll jump on it and I'll chase down as many podcasts as I can find to understand things. I think if I have a skill, and if I have a real skill that I share quite often is I can take a number of pieces that I read and I can kind of bring them together into what we do, and then I can communicate that so other people understand it. But yeah, I'm always going to be the hardest worker in the room, and if that means I got to read more, then I'm going to read more. If it means I got to listen to more podcasts, that means I'll do that. If I got to look at more data, then I'll do that. But my greatest strength, and I know it didn't sound like that from the answer in that question, but I would say it's humility.
No, thank you so very much. I really appreciate that. Ms. Gittens?
Okay. How would you handle decisions that are unpopular with the public but educationally necessary? Please cite any actual examples.
So I have kind of like a pretty stable foundation in what I believe in leadership. I believe in a number of leadership mindsets that I operate under at all times. One of them is ownership. And so if the executive team that I work with, if the school board that I get to work with, if we come together and we make a decision that we know is going to be unpopular, then that's my decision. I'm going to own that. I'm going to protect the team I work with. I'm going to protect the school board that I work with, and I'm going to own that decision. But what I'm also going to do is communicate that decision in a way that people understand it. And then I'm going to ask for grace to give us time to see it to fruition, because once the community gets to know me, they'll know I'm a person of integrity. I'll be earning trust every single interaction, every single day I come to work. And there'll come a time where that we will get grace when we have to make those tough decisions in Lee County, because we'll have a track record to prove it. But to answer your question, as superintendent, I own everything in Lee County. It's my responsibility, and it would either be my responsibility to communicate something better so a problem didn't happen. It would be my responsibility to fix a problem that did happen. But at the end of the day, it's my responsibility to communicate the decisions and own those decisions. And I think I communicate well. I can communicate with all facets of people. That's a strength of mine, is probably, I can communicate with, my dad, the construction worker, and I can communicate with my best friend, the skull-based surgeon. And I can do everybody in between. And I think through that style of communication and modeling the work ethic that I will model, and owning, and I would just own every decision, and it might take a bit of time, but the community would learn to trust and give us grace to show them why the decisions that are made are being made, and we'll have good outcomes.
Thank you so much. Very, very good answer.
Okay, Betsy Vaughn, give us some specific ideas of how you would judge your own effectiveness as a superintendent and how the board should evaluate your work.
There was always going to be one question, right? I think initially I would look at the dynamics of the executive team that I lead and look at the dynamics and look for the signals in the room on how we interacted as a team, because that's the team I'm going to spend a lot of time with. The other thing I would be interested is, I'm going to ask some hard questions with school board members about my performance, and I would take all that feedback as a very serious. One thing that I have I've learned over the last few years, when you get to a certain level, it's hard to get feedback. It's hard to get authentic feedback because you're the supervisor. So I have some strategies on how I ask questions to get feedback. What I do though is I'm always looking for signals. There's always signals if you're observant to how the people around you are performing and how the people around you are reacting to you. So I would be looking at those signals. But hopefully, we would have data we could look at, at the end of the year. But after 1 year of data, you kind of need a baseline. So it might take a few years to really look at data. I think it would be important for me to communicate with the different leaders of the different stakeholder groups and listen to their feedback on my performance and where they feel their needs are being met. And also, what are the pain points? What are the pain points out there? And am I listening to those and addressing those? I think the first year it would be very difficult to really gauge academically the impact that I could possibly bring to Lee County. I think that would be more of something that the team I would work with would be working with together, and that would be our team effort. Obviously delivered by driven by myself, but I would hope that I would establish a relationship with school board members and key stakeholders so I could get honest feedback on areas that I would need to improve on.
Thank you so much for your answer.
Hello again. Please describe your beliefs about student discipline and safety.
Well, I learned a long time ago that the first correlate of an effective school is to have a safe and orderly environment. I think we have to have clear expectations, but the environment is always set by the leader. Obviously, me as the leader of a huge comprehensive school district, I would be able to set that tone and model that tone with the team that I work with. But we would have to. I look at discipline data quite often because it's definitely a reflection on what's going on. If you don't have a safe and orderly environment, that correlates in low academic achievement. Having said that, I don't really believe in. There has to be a place for every child to go to school. Sometimes the comprehensive high school is not the right place because, for example, I have a 3,400 kid high school, and 3,300 kids come to school every day to do their best, and we might have 100 kids that are being disruptive, and we have to either come up with interventions or alternative placements. There is a time and a place for short-term suspension, and there's a time and a place for a child to go to an alternative setting. I think it's critical, though, that every leader of every school understands that the environment has to start with respect and dignity. When you create an environment of respect and dignity, generally the student behaviors will follow. And student behavior is always a complex situation because there's home environments, there's the teacher environment, there is the other student environment, and is this a one-off event? Is this multiple events? So, generally, the last few years, I haven't really been too far in the weeds with the principals and how they discipline kids, although I do set the tone on respect and dignity, and we have to have a place for all kids to learn. I don't believe that kids can end up on the street, but I also believe there has to be a safe environment for the kids that come there to learn, that come there to participate and be successful. It's a pretty complex question, and I'm not sure if there's one blanket answer. I think there has to be, you have to take a lot of different things into consideration when you're working with the disciplining of students and you're working with the behaviors in students. But I can tell you, I believe very strongly that as an educator, we have to stand for respect and dignity, and generally environments with respect and dignity have far fewer discipline situations than environments that don't.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan. Ms. Fisher?
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Mahlerwein. Given the changing dynamics of public education, what do you see as critical issues in the next 5 years?
Well, I think first, the most critical issue is, are we preparing human beings to exit, when they exit our system, to be successful and to whatever pathway they decide to follow? We have to provide a pathway, a highly rigorous pathway, and a rigorous pathway for kids that want to follow down a pathway of academics. We have to create career and technical opportunities for kids to walk out not only with a graduation, not only to be able to graduate, but what's a plus? Can they have an industry certification? Is there something else that they can walk out into the workforce with and get themselves a job and be a contributing member of society? And then, obviously we are going through right now, there is a lot of social situations that we are going through, and we need to increase and ensure equity for all of our students. And I do mean all of our students. We have to create equitable environments that everybody has an opportunity to be successful with the same type of supports, and get people to the other side of public education into what would be a successful career or be successful at a secondary level. I think you guys mentioned the teacher shortage. That is an issue, and it's really an issue when you start talking about some of our higher level courses. It's really hard to find calculus teachers. It's really hard to find teachers that can teach differentiated equations, classes like that, physics, honors chemistry. We need to look at what some of the stuff that I do in my position now as I work with the team, trying to look at alternative ways to certify teachers to get them into the classroom. Another big issue that we've been dealing with for a few years, but it seems to have hit the epicenter of it right now, is social media. How are we addressing social media? I think that cell phones and devices are here to stay. So we have to figure out, how can we make those devices effective in the classroom? And I don't know how far away we are from, the devices interfacing more intimately with, either through eyewear or chips. I think since Moore's law has been cracked, innovation is just spiraled, and so we have to as a public school district get out in front and innovate ourselves. I wonder, another thing that I think is a problem in public education is, to be honest, we've been operating under the same model for the last 120 years, and society's changed, and the world is changing, and I think we need to look at what are ways can we innovate in our classrooms, and what are the ways can we support our teachers. As education hasn't changed, neither has teacher prep programs. And I'm not positive our teachers are coming out of the university really prepared. And so how do we support them? That's another aspect to that teacher shortage issue. So, I mean, that touches on a few, but I see those as being some of the major ones that are occurring and that we need to address head on.
Absolutely, I agree with that, and thank you for that. Mrs. Giovanelli?
Okay, you're on, you've got two more. What is it about the position that makes you want to make a change at this time in your professional career? Please be specific.
Yes, ma'am. So one thing you always get with me is you always get authenticity. So I'll give it to you straight. I'm at a point in my career where I can walk out of this state and work for 6 to 10 more years, pull my state retirement here, and so and I've also growing up in a kid in working class poverty, I manage my money very well, and financially, I'm in a position where I want to look for an opportunity to make a greater difference. I have a young son; he's 8 years old, and I have a daughter, 12. And of course, I love them more than anything in the world, and I want to put them in a place where they can be successful. And because my daughter is in grade 7. I have a little bit of a window before she hits high school, so now is the time. Now is the time for me to look. I was very selective in where I applied, and so I am ready to take this next step in my career. I feel like I've spent the last 10 years after I finished my doctorate digging into the science of leadership in business. I've read a lot, and then I've taken the things that I've paid attention to and I've applied them, and I've been successful. I've been successful in my last 2 jobs. I humbly say that. I would implore you guys to call and ask, because I think people will tell you that. I've been successful, and I know I can be successful at the next level. I also believe in a different type of leadership. I believe in big leadership mindsets. I believe in empowerment. I believe in integrity, ownership. I think that my style of leadership, people have gravitated to over the last six years that I've been implementing these mindsets that I believe in. And I've seen a lot of positivity out to people I've been lucky enough to lead, the teams I've been lucky enough to lead. And I think this is a perfect time for me to take on an opportunity like the schools of Lee County. I think it's a perfect fit for me. We got to go on vacation a few times when I was a kid, and I've been to South Florida, and I love South Florida. So it obviously was, when I saw it, it was very enticing. I started to research the district. It has a lot of the things that I'm looking for in a school district that I would love to be a part of and lead. And I'm at that point in my career where, I got 9, 10 years left, maybe more, 12. I haven't even thought about when I retire. But where I'm at in the state retirement, this is an opportunity for me to leave Arizona and still collect that retirement. So financially, it was the right time. That my children's age is the right time, but also in my heart, it's the right time for me to have a bigger opportunity and to be able to lead and bring more belonging and a better self and just better environments for people that work in school districts. And I feel like that's the work I've done the last few years, and I know I can scale that work. And so I'm ready. This is the opportunity in my life. This window is open. So that's why I'm applying. And I'm just excited to be here and glad to have the opportunity to share it all with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now we're coming to the conclusion, and I will turn this back over to Ms. Fisher. This is her meeting. So I guess the final question would be, what, if any, questions that you may have of the board, and then, of course, your closing statement. And Ms. Fisher?
Yes, thank you. Do you have any questions for us at this time?
No, I don't have any questions. I appreciated the questions. I think it was, I thought you guys were able to see into me, into my heart, into my brain a little bit. So I appreciate that. So I don't have any questions for you guys. I know the timeline. The search firm told me the timeline, so I know what the window is when I'll hear if I get the opportunity to fly in there and see everybody and meet more stakeholders and whatever that has, I'm up for. So no, thank you.
Then we'll look forward, hopefully, to meeting you in person. And thank you very much for your candid and thorough answers. And then at this time, I guess this concludes the interview.
Let's see
Oh,
what's
and
a closing.
did you want to have a closing statement?
I would, please. I don't know if I'll need a lot of time. First of all, I want to thank the school board for giving me the opportunity to answer your questions and get to know me a little bit. I am ready for this. This is going to be a great challenge. It's not something that I would take lightly. I've done quite a bit of research on Lee County. I'm very excited for the opportunity. I will share with you guys that I have a level of resiliency that I won't fail. I work hard. I believe in building a strong team. We'll build a strong team. I'll work incredibly hard, and if given this opportunity, I will not let the board down, and I will not let the students down, and I will not let the parents and the community members of Lee County down. So thank you for your opportunity. I'm looking forward to hearing from you.
Yes, and thank you. And you will be hearing from us. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
So then at this time, yeah, we'll say goodbye and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Now, board members.
Thank you, Ms. Roman.
Okay, so now we'll have a break until 5:25, and we'll come back to interview semi-finalist candidate Christopher Bernay at 5:30.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.